But if Mr. Steele wants to play anything else, if it's in relationship to what he purports to be investigation or
hey y'all, we back. Lunch is over.
Impeachment,
Finally, we're gonna get back to school.
then
Going
he certainly
on
can play it.
strike.
So I just want to make sure that the periods that you all definitely don't want played, and so far that's that you've agreed upon. So far that's the alleged drag queen references from 10:50 to 9:10:50 to 9:11:30, and then from 9:16:14 to 9:17:11. You're not going to play anything about that. But anything else, I've heard arguments on it. And so to the extent that I believe the state says they're going to play some of the things that Mr. Steele wants as it pertains to subpart 16, he can, he and the rest of you are, unless you object to the contrary, they're going to get played. Now, if you want to anything else other than those two sections I specifically excluded, they're fair game for cross.
Okay, so where we're at right now is, as far as I understand, we've been just dealing with the state's proposed redactions.
Yes.
So I have 19 different redactions that I have identified.
Okay.
To protect my client's right to a fair trial, in my estimation.
Okay.
So, and that was one of them. I should say 15 different excerpts, but that was one of them.
From 9:16:14 to 9:17:11? State's not going to play that. So
Okay.
That's one down, 14 to go. So.
All right.
All right.
So, and the state said that they would play for the court because they have it queued up, but from 7:01:52 to 7:03:08.
Hold on, wait a second. 7:01?
7:01:52 to 7:03:08. It's a discussion where Kenneth Copeland is pontificating about possible reasons for there to be a beef between Bloody J and Mr. Williams. And Mr. Copeland is saying he has two sources of hearsay information, one being Bloody J, one being apparently one of Mr. Williams' sisters, where Mr. Copeland is saying, what I've been told is that Bloody J called Mr. Williams gay, and Mr. Williams holds a grudge because of that, and that Mr. Brian Williams is willing to sign Bloody J, but Mr. Jeffrey Williams has to give the go-ahead for that signing to happen, and essentially that Mr. Jeffrey Williams is preventing Mr. Brian Williams from signing Bloody J. But it's all based on things he's been told by the unidentified sister of Mr. Jeffrey Williams and by Bloody J, who my understanding is not testifying. So it's not based on personal knowledge by Kenneth Copeland. So that's what's discussed in that excerpt that I believe should be excluded. I don't, and Ms. Hilton's been very responsive and helpful in this process, but I don't know necessarily what the state's stance on some of these things are.
I want to find out. Madam?
Yes, Your Honor. So the entire section that Mr.
Talking 7:01:52 to 7:03:08?
Yes, is what defense will like out. The state has no issue with 7:02:26 to 7:03:08. That is a whole nother conversation about Bloody J allegedly stating that Mr. Williams may be gay, and that was the part of their beef. We don't want that in, so we have no issue with that.
So do I need to hear from 701:52 to 702:26,
Yes.
which is the part in contention?
Yes.
All right, can I hear that or see it?
Yes. I'm going to start it a little earlier at 7:01:47.
So, what happened with Bloody J? Not to be like, when he cool with Thug Enforcement? Who? Bloody J.
Yeah.
Why? So, when you said you were trying to hook them back up, what happened? Like, did they fall out? Was it a beef?
I think they did because Bloody J joined their game.
Okay.
Their game.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he went down with YSL, you know what I'm saying? So he joined in.
I heard it to be saying.
So, Your Honor, that's the portion that the state wants in. And the reason why we want this portion in, Your Honor, is if you hear what Woody says, he talks about previously, and it was either in this interview earlier or in the January 11th interview, he talks about the fact that he had to bring Bloody J and Thug together, and that he would invite Bloody J to different events. So I think he mentions, like, I would tell Bloody J, if Mr. Williams was performing at Blue Flame, come through the Blue Flame, come to these places so you can get back in good graces with them. And so when they ask him what happened with Bloody J, he's now explaining what the severance was between Bloody J. And Your Honor, if you can recall, we already have video evidence from 2012 in which Bloody J, Mr. Williams, all of them are outside at the park. They were all wearing red. Donovan Thomas is in that video showing them that they were together. And at some point, there's a break between that. And so Mr. Copeland is talking about what his understanding is of that break. We stopped right before the conversation about rumors about Mr. Williams being gay, because we don't think that that's relevant. But the fact that he talks about Bloody J went with If Gang and maybe was a part of YSL at some point is important and relevant given the context of the rest of the evidence that has come in. One, that 2012 video, and two, in the context of this, I believe it is this interview. Earlier in the interview, he talks about the fact that he used to tell Bloody J to come around in order to get back into good graces. So we believe that is relevant, and it gives context to what he said earlier.
Okay.
Oh, and one other thing, and we talk about this idea like it's based on rumors. Well, everything the court is getting ready to allow the defense to do on cross-examination is based on what he heard. So that to me is not a valid argument. They're going to come back here to say, well, this beef is based upon what he heard. Well, everything that the defense has literally just asked for you to let in is based upon what he heard. Like literally what we litigated for the last 2 hours is based upon what other people told him and what he heard on the street.
All right. You sure?
So, regarding the beginning part that the state still intends.
701:52 to 702:26.
Yes, sir. My argument would be, I mean, he's saying, I guess this, I guess that. It sounds like he's speculating to me. So that would be speculation. And so we feel that it should all be redacted.
What transcript reference is it?
It is page 42. And beginning at line 3 to page 43, line 2.
You said 43 line 2?
Page 42, line 3 through page 43, line 2.
I'm gonna exclude that from 70142 to 70226. The rest of it can be played. And I believe you all have excluded, actually, you've excluded 70226 to 70308 by agreement. Is there anything else in that segment that I need to rule upon?
Can I understand the court's ruling? So
I'm gonna exclude 70152 to 70226.
can we understand what the basis is?
It's speculation.
But Your Honor, we literally just let in speculation for the last, everything that the
That's
defense,
impeachment, though. It's
but
not
it was impeachment based on speculation.
It's impeachment.
And what part is the court believing is speculation?
Madam, I'm ruling, okay? I've ruled. 70152 to 70226 is not gonna be played. Okay? You all have agreed upon 70226 to 70308 to be excluded. So is there anything else in that particular segment that I need to resolve? That should take care of it, right?
For that
Yes, ma'am.
area, yes, Your Honor?
Okay, all right. Next portion.
Second time period, I believe that we may be in agreement with the state about this. It's 70316 to 70436. It's discussion about Kenneth Copeland's girlfriend named Deshawn at the time, her stepfather. It's discussion about her stepfather. And I don't think it has any relevance in this case. And I think we're in agreement with that. Is that correct, Ms. Hilton?
Yes.
Okay. So
So
that
that-
would be 70316 to 70436.
Is that gonna be excluded, Ms. Hilton?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Next period.
The next period was 72349 to 73023, I believe. We're gonna
73023
yes, and we're gonna withdraw our request.
withdrawn.
Your Honor, I think this is covered from what we discussed earlier.
In which section?
It may be.
This is the entire number 4, I believe,
Hold on.
or at least portions of number 4.
Yeah, we covered that in number 4, so already. Because number 4 is 722 to 72454.
Yes, Your Honor. The only difference was, there's the certain, and earlier you ruled we can play it.
What's
The part where, Mr. Copeland does not, basically the state in their suggested redaction was started earlier to take out the part about Kenneth Copeland, having the opportunity to say what he supposedly learned on January 10th, but not saying it, and you ruled in our favor on that. And so,
You're gonna be able to cross on that.
right,
Yes.
okay.
And I want to be clear because this entire portion, 723.49 through 730.23, although they're withdrawing it, it covers what was number 4 and number 5 on the state's redaction. So we won't be playing it because our understanding is the defense agrees with 5. There was no dispute as to 5.
Yeah, we didn't, 5, there's no disagreement on 5. 5, the only disagreements I had were 4, 9, 11, 14, and 16.
Correct. So I just want to be clear that although they're withdrawing it, the number 3 is inclusive of what's in 4 and 5 on the state's redaction.
Number 3 in terms of what? What are you talking about?
Number 3 on the defenses.
Number 3 is, I'm sorry, I may have misnumbered it, but 1 is the, well, how do you have it?
Did you get the email that I sent to defense with the defendant's proposed redactions?
Yes, ma'am, I have it.
So that may make it easier.
Which one is the defense, though?
So the entire document that I just emailed at lunch is all the defenses, their proposed redaction.
And Your Honor, you can, for the purposes of this, it references 2 different times. You can ignore the first column because we're just going off the state's videos times to simplify things.
The timestamp?
Right. So the first column is defense redaction times. You can ignore those times because we're just to be universal.
I don't think I have that one. I think I just have, I don't know if I got that. Let me just see. Ms. Holton, did you send that to me
Yes.
as well?
I believe so.
I have it now. Let's see.
Yeah, it was sent at 2:22.
For purposes of discussion, I'll include it as the next court's exhibit in order. And I'll forward it to Ms. Weaver. All right, so which one do you want me to disregard, Mr. Sharp? Defense redaction times?
Right. Just for the ease of this
And
conversation,
to go
we'll just
with-
focus on the evidence reviewer times.
Okay, all right. So have we covered, which ones have we covered so far? Or are we covering right now?
We're on the defense number 3,
Okay,
which the state is stating that time frame is inclusive of what is on the state's 4 and 5.
I get it.
The problem is, and I'm kind of speaking for everyone, Mr. Steele, when we were discussing the state's requests, indicated a desire to get into on cross-examination as impeachment, what's in 4 and 5. So while I'm withdrawing my request on behalf of Mr. Stillwell, and Mr. Steele, I think, wants to get into the topics from 723.49 to 730.23.
So we didn't discuss that because initially we
Right.
said that was going to be agrees, at least for the purposes of this conversation, agreed upon. So we didn't have any discussions of the state's number 5 because we're just learning now that that's going to be objective.
It goes back to what you heard about Rich Homie Kwan putting $25,000 on, according to Kenneth Copeland, Rich Homie Kwan putting $25,000 on someone's head. Those discussions, that's what comes in during this time period. And I believe you said that Mr. Steele could talk about that on cross-examination.
Yes.
So,
So do we have any more discussion about it?
No.
Okay, all right. Which one are we dealing with next?
Number 4 is from 7/42/21 to 7/47/02, and that I'm not. There's a gentleman who is on our indictment that's not sitting at trial with us. I don't even want to say the person's name, who was once falsely accused of rape. And the officers make reference to how people that he was charged with did him dirty because they all knew he didn't commit the rape, but they basically let him sit in jail and let him sit there and take the blame for this rape.
Your Honor, that's not in dispute. That's consistent with case number 8.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hilton, I didn't quite hear the last thing you said. It's not in
It's
dispute
not in
what?
dispute. It's consistent with the state's number 8.
Okay, so we're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
That's excluded. Next.
750/00 to 750/56. It's the police investigator Dennis and Gaither asked Kenneth Copeland about his knowledge of. Essentially, there was apparently a shooting outside a hotel where Jeffrey Williams' fiance was throwing some sort of hotel party, and the police asked Kenneth Copeland what he knows about that shooting and how it's related to the Donovan Thomas shooting. Kenneth Copeland, in response, knows nothing about it. He's like, I don't even know about that. And then the police kind of tell him about it and put that in the atmosphere, where Kenneth Copeland is completely lacking any knowledge of it, is my recollection. So essentially, it's not even what Kenneth Copeland says. It's the police start talking about this shooting, and that's not proper and should be redacted.
So they're talking. So from 750 to 756, they're talking about some unrelated shooting.
Unrelated shooting at a hotel party that was thrown by Jeffrey Williams' girlfriend at the time, I believe, or the mother of his child, and right, it's unrelated. It's never been linked to this case, and Kenneth Copeland knows nothing about it.
All right, let me find out the state's going to talk about it.
Yes, Your Honor. This particular shooting was discussed while Detective Dennis was on the stand. He discussed a series of events that occurred in the days leading up to the Donovan Thomas murder. And this is one of the shootings that he discussed on the stand. The reason why the state wants to send is because the defendant's theory, even in the midst of this motions argument, is that Mr. Copeland was just lying throughout every part of these interviews. And what this portion shows is when he was unaware of something, he told the detectives, I don't know about that. I have no idea. So it shows that he was trying to be truthful with the things that he knew and the things that he didn't know. And if the defense is going to cross-examine Mr. Copeland as to whether or not he's being truthful in this interview, this here shows that the officers are talking to him about a shooting that they believe is relevant to what happened in the days leading up to the murder of Donovan Thomas. I believe this shooting happened on maybe the Thursday or the Friday before Mr. Thomas was murdered. And they're talking to him about this event. This was a shooting that happened outside of the W Hotel. And they're asking him about if he has any information about it, if he was aware of it. And Mr. Copeland says, no, I didn't even hear about that. Matter of fact, I met Mr. Williams at the studio that night. And so again, this rebuts this notion that Mr. Copeland was just trying to lie and make up stories the entire interview. And that's in a direct contradiction to what they are going to try to say about Mr. Copeland. So we believe it's relevant. The information about the shooting has already come out in testimony from Detective Dennis when he testified a few weeks ago. And so it is relevant to show that Mr. Copeland was not just trying to make stuff up in the course of this interview.
All right, sir.
Well, the problem is that these statements, the alleged purpose is to show Mr. Copeland's inconsistencies. And he offers no statement about
You
this.
can cross him on. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, is that he may end up at some of the things that he said may be truthful and some may not be.
Right. I guess my point is with this particular excerpt, it's not even what Mr. Copeland says. It's what Investigator Dennis and Gaither said that comes out. And it's not even a Kenneth Copeland issue. And these statements are allegedly being played for the purpose, like the origin of why we're playing these is to show Mr. Copeland's inconsistencies. And in this excerpt, Mr. Copeland doesn't really say anything. So
Listen.
Do you need a page number, Your Honor?
Is it 138, line 11 to page 140, line 22?
Yes.
All right, let me read it.
Your Honor, it seems to me that if the state wants to bring out the fact that Mr. Copeland stated that he did not have knowledge of something that the police asked about, they could simply ask him without making it about Jeffrey Williams' girlfriend or the mother of his child, and just simply ask him the question on direct or on redirect. Did the police ask you about a shooting that happened and you told them you didn't know anything? And then we wouldn't have to get into because this shooting that's being discussed, I just want to be clear. I don't believe in our discovery we even received police reports about it, because I don't even think there were police reports generated about this shooting. This is kind of something that comes up and is talked about, but I don't even believe that there was police reports made. And Kenneth Copeland doesn't even know anything about it. And somehow it's entered the ether of this case without anyone really having any firsthand knowledge of anything involving that, much less if it's related to the Donovan Thomas shooting.
Your Honor, that's not, I believe, and we're pulling it up, we brought in CAD reports as related to this shooting with Ms. Latner's. And furthermore, Mr. Copeland, when he was on the stand last week, said, if they asked me about the sky, I would say the sky was blue. If they asked me about her shoes, I would say that her shoes were white. This goes to show that he just wasn't saying anything. If there were things that he did not know, he said that. So this is one, in contradiction to what he said on the stand. And two, this is the detectives asking him questions and he being able to say, I don't know about that. If he was just trying to make stuff up, which is what he's claiming in court, he would have said, yes, I know about this shooting. Yes, it has something to do with thugs. Yes, he doesn't say any of that. And the jurors get to determine whether or not they believe, one, his trial testimony or what he said previously. Furthermore, defense counsel literally have just argued for 2 hours that they want to be able to show that Mr. Copeland lies about some things, doesn't lie about other things. And so here's another example of that. So when you look at all that in totality, this is relevant to play for the jury so the jurors can make a decision on what they believe or what they don't believe, given his in-court testimony and given what he said previously during this interview.
Sure, anything else before I rule?
Well, I understand generally what the state's arguing. However, I just don't understand why you would need to get into specifics, the unfounded specifics that Mr. Copeland has no knowledge of, that it involved Jeffrey's significant other and those things. Why you couldn't just ask Kenneth Copeland on the stand? Weren't you asked about a shooting at a hotel a couple days before, that occurred a couple days before, and you told the police that you knew nothing about that, you had no knowledge, and therefore they could get out what they want to get out without bringing in, it was Jeffrey Williams' significant other throwing a hotel party and all the rest, because it's not being linked to this case.
Mr. Short, I'm gonna allow it. At the end of the day, it's relevant, so I will allow it. Or re-objection. I'll give you a continued objection.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, what's next?
I have number 6 is erroneous.
That's 133 to 133.00 to 133.05?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're not talking about that at
Correct.
all?
Correct.
All right?
The
go ahead,
next
Mr.
one is
133.50 to
Okay. Right.
I'm sorry, it's 808.04 to 809.12.
correct.
Hey, Your
And
Honor, it's not in this.
okay.
I don't believe it's in dispute. The only thing that we're asking, this is the same as number 12 on the state's redaction.
Hold on, number 12. Okay, I don't have that anyways, because that was not something that we argued
And I
about.
think the entirety, and what I understood when we left yesterday,
I'm sorry, go ahead, I apologize. Go ahead.
the entirety of 808.21 through 811.50, at least yesterday, wasn't at issue. This portion here covers that from 808.04 to 809.12, so the state has no issue.
Okay, so,
Well-
with this portion.
so that's not an issue, Mr. Steve, Mr. Sharp, okay?
The issue is that the state's redaction is 808.21 to 811.50. I agree with 808.21. I have 808.04 is the beginning.
I'm sorry, you had 808, I was coughing.
808.04, they have 808.21, but we can clarify that. But I have it ending at 809.12. So they're seeking redaction of an extra 2.5 minutes. Now, speaking for myself, I did agree with the state, in full candor, Ms. Hilton's right. I did agree with the state. My understanding after speaking to Mr. Steele is, Mr. Steele, I'm just trying to bring everything, I'm kind of the spokesperson, but I'm trying to make the court aware of everyone's stances. I believe Mr. Steele wants to get in 809.12 to 811.50, where Kenneth Copeland talks about, and Mr. Steele, correct me if I'm wrong, talks about Kel wanting to kill Jeffrey's sister. Someone said Kel was called over after. Then they're talking about the Lucci's mother's house being shot up, and they're talking about Kel coming over there and Lucci paying or asking why Lucci won't pay Kel's bond, and that Lucci's car was the one used to shoot up Kenneth Copeland's mother's house, and how Kel robbed Gervin Gervin Henry, who's also known as Fly. So it's a lot of discussion about Kenneth Copeland makes accusations about wrongdoing by Kelvin Watts. I believe Mr. Steele wants to get into that. I'm going to let him argue that. But so I agree with this state from 808.04 to 809.12. But
I'll let Mr. Steele, or he can perfect his argument on that. So, sir?
Your Honor, I believe most of this is false by Mr. Copeland, and it shows Mr. Gervin, who is supposedly aligned with Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Thomas's half-brother, known as Shell Kel, is now robbing Mr. Gervin. Instead of these joint supposed enemy gangs going after each other, now you have insider gang after gang member, which I don't believe is truthful, and it just goes to show that this is not the way the state has reported, that this is a gang of one, of the IF gang versus the gang of another, YSL, and it just goes to the preposterous nature of Mr. Copeland, who's a serious witness, big witness for the prosecution, and how the detectives have gone out and eliminated, they just ignore some of the information they're given under the auspices of our investigation. And I want to bring out the investigation, what it shows, and they can say, the investigators can say, we didn't believe Mr. Copeland on that, yet they choose to believe Mr. Copeland on another issue, and it goes to the jury. So that's why I wanted to.
All right, can you play for me 809.12 to 811.50, please? Or tell me the transcript references and the transcript references, please.
He said from 809.12, so it's going to be page 180, line 10. Through page 186, line 1. And it's going to start a little bit earlier, around 809.05.
Pay bond. They said he made a Lucci, because Lucci ain't paid bond.
Why? Why Lucci ain't paid bond?
But what don't make sense, let's say, okay, word that we got, right? Somebody said that Kel was called over there to the house after he got shot up.
So at Lucci Mama's house? Yes. All we heard was Lucci Mama's house got shot up. Kel pulled up with the guns. They would come to the tree. Kel pulled up with the guns in the car. And police walked up, searched the car, found the guns, locked them up.
But why
Why was he there? Who brought him there?
I don't know.
Lucci Mama house. Kel comes. Who brought him to Lucci Mama house? Like, how did he know they got shot up?
Like, do we just hang out in the driveway?
I know Lucci. They probably, you know.
So if that's the case, and then he got locked up, why did Lucci want to pay his bond? You know what I'm saying? And I basically
Called you and said, yo, my house got shot out of town.
check out.
And then the red Camaro Lucci got,
Yeah.
the same car they ran around, they shot my girl Mama's house up. They Lucci car.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I ain't get it. You know what I'm saying? They got my name on so much stuff. Like, people that come and tell us, they tell us a little bit, then they start talking about it's me. You know what I'm saying? Like, my girl, she get a lot of information from her friends. She got a lot of friends, so they be around me. Lucci and them was talking in the studio, and it was a girl in there. They missed one of them, and she my girlfriend. And she said that they nobody do that. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? They was all like Kill and K Ross, man. You know what I'm saying?
Kill and who?
K.
Who's that?
I sent you a picture of that too. Then I think I sent it over to you. They had chop on in the picture.
Oh yeah. And the gym was in the car.
Yeah, them two, Ross, man, and they supposed to came back. They was talking about the studio. You know what I'm saying? They just put my name on it, cover it up.
Make it seem like they ain't got beef in the streets, whatever.
Yeah, and then it's like, she was like, they know we can't do it. You know what I'm saying? But they gonna keep playing on him. And she was like, K, when the nigga got killed, K first one called everybody like, we killed Nut. Tell the mom now what it is. He the first one started my name. And it's like, Kill went along with it. So they had Jerry Ross, like, then they did, like, Nut died, then they started.
That same day?
I don't know when. They like, they Jerry Ross, man. And niggas supposed to be coming back for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kill Rock Flat, Plug, Flat. He robbed one of them. Like, and then, like, they would have somebody broke in that cup and gave me the phone and the jury. Cause when I realized I sick, you know what I'm saying? What the hell? See, Nut shit. Right. I called Nut. Hey, man, I got your shit right here. Pull up on me. He come pull up on me. But before I gave that to him, I really texted. And he was texting Kill like, come on, bro, I introduce you to these folks, bro. You just took them out. And he was like, he sent a big paragraph. Kill this shit like, man, nigga, like, nigga, what up? You know what I'm saying? Like, nigga, I'm out here, nigga. You ain't doing it for me. Yeah.
Yes.
This part isn't it.
Okay. So we stopped at 8/12/24.
I don't think that was the part.
Yeah.
Yes, you went from 8:09 to 8:11:50. That's what you want in, right?
Right.
Okay, so I just went past it a little bit. but-
Yeah. I was just trying to draw your attention to that.
But we're still arguing.
So the part about the end part that we just heard about him lying and saying someone had taken Donovan Thomas's things and given it to him, which he's since said is a lie, and he in fact stole it. That's I think both sides are in agreement. That's clearly coming. That's clearly relevant. But till 8/11/50, that ended with him saying Kel robbed Fly, who's Mr. Henry, and that's where the disputed excerpt ended that Mr. Steele was talking about.
That's page 186, line 1. That's 8/11/50. Is that the
8/11/50 would end at
page what?
page 186, line 1. Well, I'm sorry, page 185, line 24.
All right. I'm gonna allow for persons across. The portion from 8:09:12 to 8:11:50, or pages 180, line 10 to 185, line 24, on cross.
I just want to put on the record that again, in this portion, what he says is, all we heard, this came from trivia. He actually says, my girlfriend knows a lot of people and my girlfriend told us this. So again, this isn't him testifying that he himself is saying that these things happen. He has said multiple times in this section, all we heard, this came from trivia. I don't know. My girlfriend gets a lot of information from her friends. She got a lot of friends, so they be telling us stuff. And Lucci and them were talking at the studio, and it was a girl who told us. So again, this is not Mr. Copeland saying these things occurred. This is Mr. Copeland saying, this is what trivia told me. This is what my girlfriend's friends told me. And I'm giving you information that I am hearing. That is a rumor.
But I think that Mr. Steele's saying is that he can test Mr. Copeland about, because Mr. Steele, he's saying there's another version of this he's told already?
I'm saying that this is how the police conducted their investigation. That's exactly what I'm.
Yeah, I'm gonna allow him to ask about it for that reason. So on cross. All right, what else?
So the next section is another place
So the
where.
next one being, which one is this?
What-
I'm going down the defense redaction time.
Yes, sir. 82131 to 8.
82259.
Yes, sir.
Page 203, line 11 to page 206, line 17.
Yes, sir. And this is another example of kind of views diverging on the defense side. I did tell the state that I was fine with it being redacted, but I believe Mr. Steele has a different view on that. It's a discussion about the killing of DB, who is a friend of Mr. Copeland, who was a friend of Mr. Copeland, and Mr. Copeland's view about who killed DB.
Okay, well, let me hear from Mr. Steele. Sir?
It's the same exact issue. It's Mr. Copeland is falsely accusing, based upon our investigation, a gentleman named Fred and Little Haiti Gang of killing another person. And there's going to be no information that that's close to being true, but that's what he spits out. And my belief is that that's why Mr. Williams is sitting here, because he again just falsely accuses others. That's why I wanted it in. It goes to the investigation. It's the same exact argument. The police are just listening to rumor, speculation, and people who concoct stories. And that's what I want to bring out in the courtroom through Mr. Copeland.
Your Honor, again, the murder of DB is a collateral matter. It has nothing to do with what Mr. Copeland said about who killed Donovan Thomas. There's no relevance as to who killed DB. The investigators were not investigating DB's murder in this particular interview. They are getting information, and Mr. Copeland is providing whatever information he's providing, but they are focused on two things: the gang war that was ensuing at this time, because by the time January 28th, 2015 has occurred, the murder of Donovan Thomas has occurred. I believe there was a shooting at Mr. Williams' stepfather's house had occurred. Mr. Copeland's girlfriend's mother's house was shot up by this time. Mr. Copeland had been shot at on the highway by this time. And that is what they are interviewing. I mean, that is what they are investigating. This notion that the detectives just was getting information and this was their investigation. No, he's providing information on a number of different topics. All the topics were not relevant to what they were investigating. The fact that he is telling them who he thinks murdered DB has no bearing on what these investigators were investigating at the time that they interviewed him. He's just giving information about a number of different things. They parsed down what was relevant, and they further investigated what was relevant based on what they were investigating at the time, which was the murder of Donovan Thomas and the back and forth shootings that had occurred between January 10th and January 28th. And if I can have a moment, I can look at the board to see how many shootings had occurred between that time.
Okay.
by the time can you hear me, Ms. Weaver? By the time that they are interviewing Mr. Copeland on the 28th, they had
Of January.
They had leading up to the murder, they had a shooting at 988 Confederate Court, which was on January 8th. They had the shooting on Spring Street at Ivan Allen, which was near the area where Mr. Williams' girlfriend was having a birthday party or some type of party. They had the murder of Donovan Thomas on January 10th. They had the shooting that night or early morning hours of January 11th at 88 Venera Street, another shooting at 193 Hendrick Street, another shooting on January 12th at 349 Cleveland Avenue, another shooting on Ruby Harper Place. They had a shooting at Mr. Copeland's sister house on January 13th. They had another shooting on January 13th. I believe that's the address on Ruby Harper, which was Mr. Williams' stepfather's house. On January 22nd, they had a shooting at Mr. Rayshawn Bennett's mother's home. Then they had another shooting on January 26th where Mr. Copeland and I believe Mr. Stillwell and Demetrius Garland were.
Girl, you could have saved all of that for your notes. Why you got all
then there was
this
another
for like
shooting
you was about to show us
at
something?
Mr. Bennett's mother's home at that time. And then there was a shooting at Entrevia Smith's house.
Hell, I thought we
on
was
January 25th. So that's what they're
Look,
investigating.
something.
They're not investigating DB's murder. They're not investigating any of these other collateral things that Mr. Steele is trying to get into with this notion of, I want to see how they investigate cases. That's not, they were only investigating what happened between January and at this point, January 28th. So
But they asked Mr. Copeland about them, and they chose to. And then whether or not he lied about it. Now, whether or not it's relevant to the issue of the killing of Donovan Thomas, that's the principal issue. But if he, I believe they're entitled to at least ask him about those things. I mean, now whether or not they can prove anything else is another thing.
So sure they
It
did.
may be a collateral matter. But if he lied some in substance about what he told the police or why he told them that, I think that's fair game for them to examine.
But even in this, what he's trying to get in, they asked him. He says they don't know, man. They don't know. And what Dennis asks is, who do you think did it? He didn't say Fred did it. He said, I think Fred did it.
Listen, that's what came at that man now.
He says. He says, I don't know. I think Fred did it. Or he might say, you know. But he's not saying.
Where's that? I'm sorry.
On page 203, line 19.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to tell Dennis he provided some information.
203, what line? What? Line 19?
At the bottom, it begins at line 19. And it goes into page 204.
Okay.
And it appears that this time they had not arrested anyone. He's telling him how he may have participated or told the detective some information about it. But this notion that this is a part of their
it is taking this real crazy because I'm trying to understand. It was either quiet at the hotel or they was out here shooting people.
Because that's not what they were investigating. So there was no need to follow up on whatever information about DB's murder because they weren't investigating.
You can't be in two places at one time.
Mr. Seals told you he has a good faith basis to ask the question.
Well, statement it's collateral, but we understand the portion.
All right. So, Mr. Seals, I'll let you inquire on the cross, okay? Yes? Yes. All right, okay. All right. And that's from 8:21:31 to 8:22:59. All right.
So the next section, Your Honors, 838.29 to 838.44. It's within there. It may not take up those 15 seconds, but it's a comment about my client's criminal history. They asked Mr. Copeland how long he's known Mr. Stillwell, or been hanging out with Mr. Stillwell, and and this is all information that Mr. Copeland's already provided from the stand. But Mr. Copeland says essentially, I don't know, as long as I've been hanging out ever since Shannon got out, or something to that matter, which is references my client's criminal history. So he would just ask that be redacted.
Your Honor, the state has no objection. We believe the appropriate time frame is 8:30, 8:36 to 8:30, 8:44.
Okay.
Is the appropriate time frame. But can we go back to 8, because I want to be clear.
Can we go back to what, madam? I'm sorry.
Number 8, so I can understand. Defense counsel wanted 8:21:31 through 8:22:59 out.
They want to cross. I'm going to let them cross on that.
No. Based upon this, Mr. Shard wanted it out.
And that is true.
So
Yeah, he
I
wants
guess-
it out.
I'm withdrawing that.
He wants it out. Mr. Steele wants it he really wants it included as part of, to be played, but I'm going to not require you to play it when on your.
This is like
on your
the
continued record.
it's
He's
too
welcome
many. It's too many
to get
players.
into it on cross.
Each player got at least one attorney.
Okay.
Y'all got
You're
too
talking about
much going
discussion about
on.
the killing of DB. He can get on that.
If
He
you
can-
ain't got
he can
concrete
inquire about that on
evidence,
cross. I'm
don't
not gonna
try
require you
this.
to Put it in your direct, but he can ask about that on cross.
There were other portions that the state wanted in. So if Mr. Shard is asking for that entire, if he's withdrawing his request, I just want to make sure that the portion that the state wants in is fine. So
What, all right.
Four,
What
five,
portion do
thank
you
you.
What
want?
are you
Concrete.
trying to, all right, from 8:21 to 8:30, 8:21:31 to 8:22:59, what are you trying to get in then, madam?
we are going to play 8:21:31 through 8:21:37.
She
And
don't
what
know.
does that cover?
Where he talks about who do you hang with from the Ville. They're asking who does he hang with from Mechanicsville, and besides the Demetrian and Shannon, and he acts like now, and she says, yeah, I mean everybody's locked up. He says, man, besides Shannon and D, you ain't gonna see me hanging with nobody. And they wanted that excluded, but we want that in. And then
I think our seconds may be off a little bit. If that's what's being discussed, I don't have any problem with if Mr. Copeland's asked who he hangs out with and he says, besides Lil D and Shannon, you ain't gonna see me with nobody, then I mean that's his answer. I don't have a problem.
Are you gonna get into anything about the reference of being locked up?
he wasn't talking about them. They were asking like, out of all these other people, who do you hang with? And he says, I only hang with Shannon and D. The locked up reference is not to any defendant.
So are you I understand you disagree fundamentally, for all the defendants do, but
Right.
is there any further discussion about 8:21:31 to 8:21:37?
No, and I'm going off of what the state's saying. It says, if it's just who do you hang out with and he says who he hangs out with, I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah, if you're asking to get that in, unless somebody wants to be heard about that issue, I'm gonna let the state play that. But as for 8:21, I guess 38 through 8:22:59, Mr. Steele can inquire about that on cross.
Okay, well, we wanted in 8:22:53 through 8:22:59, so that's fine. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
So the next one I think is 8:43:15 to
But we skipped one. The 8:38, is it 36 or is it 29?
I believe the correct timestamp is 8:30, 8:36 to 8:30, 8:44.
But it's the reference to Shannon.
Y'all don't even have y'all
Mr.
timestamps
Stillwell's
together.
Criminal history?
Yes, sir.
So that we're gonna exclude that, right?
Seriously though.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
that's
time. I'm over
excluded.
there.
Okay, the next time period we gotta discuss is what?
8:43:15,
Then she sit up and she adding on little extra seconds that ain't supposed to be there. She ain't called for the hour.
8:44:01.
And
The state doesn't have any dispute to that.
So that can be,
will-
so that excluded?
Yes, but we
They're
want
just
to be
making it
clear,
so
the
easy
state
for the
will
appellate court. Just so easy.
stop playing after. I think the question is,
Yeah,
where is Duke?
this foolishness. This is straight foolishness.
Dennis asks, "What's up with Duke?" And Kenneth says, "Duke, he's locked up." And Dennis says, "I know," and we'll stop at that point because it is not. The evidence will come out that he is locked up during this time, Mr.
That's on the front end of this time range?
Correct. So
Okay.
everything after 8314 is when they go into the time that he was offered, and all of that is excluded.
Okay. Now, 10, from my notes, 10 ends at 8:44:01, and then 11 begins at 8:44:05. I assume there's nothing that you want to play between 8:44:01 and 8:44:05. I think they're two topics that just flow into each other.
I think that's where we go into the
Jimmy Winfrey.
Jimmy Winfrey stuff and
Yes.
all that is out.
Okay, so they agreed with 10, Your Honor, to go 8:44:01 is when 10 ends. 11, which is
So hold on, wait a sec. So, okay, so 8:44. Oh, okay, you're ending that. That talks about Duke being in custody. So where are we picking up from there?
So it's literally like 8:43:16. We can cut from 8:43:16 all the way to 8:47:37.
no.
That's not what I see, so.
So there's two different discussions. There's a discussion about the theater shooting that goes 8:43:15 to 8:44:01. I believe it flows seamlessly into the discussion about sexual proclivities. And we've agreed to cut out the Jimmy Winfrey portion of that.
Okay.
So
I just want to make sure that I'm clear with what you all are asking. Is the 8:43:15 to 8:44:01 the Duke in custody you all excluded?
So
no, right before 8:43:15, Duke in custody, and then 8:43:15 begins.
right, and what the state is saying is after 8:43:15 to 8:47:37, the state will not play. Now, if the defense, based on the court's ruling, wants to get into what we talked, this is what covers Jimmy Winfrey, sexual proclivities, Birdman, sexual proclivities.
We're not getting into
We're
that.
not getting any of that. So,
And it gets into the marketing strategy for Mr. Williams. If
Right.
they choose to get into that, they can, but we will not be playing.
okay, so you won't be playing anything from 8:43:15 after Duke in custody to what time?
8:47:37.
8:47:37.
But the state is aware that we're going to discuss 8:45:12 to 8:47:34, which goes into the
Marketing strategy.
and wearing a dress.
Wearing whatever clothing. Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. What's next?
Okay. So next one is, I believe it's 902:37 to 903:42. Is that what you have, Ms. Hilton? It's
Yes.
and it's hearsay. Kenneth Copeland says that he has heard, or people are saying, that Donovan Thomas in his dying breath was saying, Doug did this to me, or something to that effect. People that were actually at the scene for Donovan Thomas's last breaths have said that that was not said. Sammy Davis took the stand and talked about what had happened there, and that's just street rumor being put out there by Kenneth Copeland. So I don't know what the state stance is.
So, Your Honor, let me put some things in context. So when Mr. Copeland is talking about this particular portion, he's actually trying to say, I don't think that all this was said, because he talks about what happened when DB died and how much time it took for him to get to the hospital. So what he actually says is Now, how do you know he got shot 4 times in the chest? You know what else they said? They said that they were holding Nut, and Nut said, "I ain't gonna make it, bro." Well, that came out in evidence because I believe that is what one of the barbershop witnesses said, that he did hear him say, "I ain't gonna make it, bro." Now, the part that the state will redact, because that has not come into evidence, is that Copeland says they said that Nut said Thug ass had something to do with it. We will exclude that portion because we don't believe that has come into evidence. And that is from 903.14 to 903.21. However, the portions before that actually has come into evidence, which is we have witnesses who were actually standing over Mr. Thomas as he was taking his last breath. And they said, he did say, "I ain't gonna make it, bro."
That was already been in evidence.
That's been
I think that, who was it, Mr.
It was one of the barbershop, I think it was Mr. Wise.
Mr. Wise?
I believe it was Mr. Wise who said it. He was the one who came out of Mr. George's barbershop. Yes, it was Mr. Wise who said it.
And I want to say that the 911 call also.
We don't have a.
But we will exclude 903.14 and 903.21, which says
You said you're going to exclude 903.
14 to 903.21, which is where he says, they said, Nut said, Thug ass had something to do with it. We will exclude that.
So I'll exclude.
We're in agreement.
If you're in agreement, that portion can be excluded.
Okay.
That's 903 to 903.24, right?
Right.
Okay.
21.
Did we cover already the 902.37 to 903.42?
I think the timestamps might be off. I believe that the portion that
What does that
Vince
pertain
wanted
to?
to get out was the Thug did it part. They can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
But if the Thug did it part, that is 903.14 to 903.21.
All right, so y'all going to exclude that? Okay, all right. Okay, what's next, Mr. Sharp?
9:10:33 to 9:11:33, which was the discussion about the Waffle House and the fight with the quote unquote drag queens,
Okay, all right.
and which I think we've already dealt with, correct?
Yes,
All
that's
right,
out.
so that's coming out. 9:16:14 to 9:17, I believe it's 11. There's discussion about Shannon, about rumors that someone thought that Shannon had set them up, Mr. Stillwell had set them up.
It's not in dispute. We won't.
Okay. So it was just
So
bad
9:16:14 to 9:17, that's excluded.
Do you agree
Okay.
with that, the timing that I'm giving on that?
We might just need to look at it, but I think a part of it is about this whole car and Miss Mary.
Right. Oh, and
We can just get the timestamps together, but
it's included in that is they're asking about a lady named Mary, I think, that rents cars, and they were saying how she gave one to Shannon and the police got it.
I think it's 9:16:27 where it says, I doubt if Shannon does, because Shannon got caught in something before he was locked up. I believe that's at 9:16:27, but we can.
Okay, but there's also the discussion about him allegedly setting up someone for a robbery.
Correct. That-
Okay,
it was always like
so I'm
9:16,
my objection is to all that, just so we're clear.
So I think that the state's going to exclude that.
Okay.
Is that correct, Ms. Hilton?
Yes, I believe it goes up to 9:17:20. The next part we will pick up on is the types of car that Shannon has, or Shannon's girlfriend has a red car and Monty had a Pontiac. That's
Okay.
what we'll pick up there.
And number 19 kind of piggybacks on that. And now this is the same person who heard target on their heads when it was turbans on their heads. So I may have heard this wrong, but to me it sounds like on
It's turbans. That we
right. No, that was a different tape, but I'm just saying sometimes my hearing isn't the best. But in this particular tape, I hear them talking about Shannon's girlfriend
Which section are you talking about now?
It's 24340.
It's 9/17/27 through
9 what?
9/17/27 through 9/17/56.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm sorry. I'm
And
going by
then
my things.
Page
And what's the page reference, madam?
291, line 24 through page 293, line 14.
And they're talking about my client's one of his friends at the time. I think her name was Nikwa or Neek, and they're saying Kenneth Copeland says, yeah, she's the one that steals clothes, is what I hear.
I don't hear that at all. I don't think she says anything about stealing clothes. What I believe she is talking about is they asked him what type of car what kind of cars do individuals have? He says, I know Shannon girl got a red car. Monte got a Pontiac. They asked him what color is the Pontiac. Kenneth says a gray one.
Can I hear it?
Sure.
And just to be clear, I don't have any objection to the cars.
Yeah, I don't think he says anything about clothes, but we can just play this section.
All right.
Yeah, I just got caught up in the past me shine because of the bullshit, man. Sure. I know Shannon girl got a red car. Monte got a Pontiac. Nico, what color Pontiac Monte got? A gray. Nico got she got a black Impala.
Who got a black Impala?
Nico, Shannon girl, like one of the girls Shannon mentioned with.
What's her name?
Nico. She still clothes. Nico? Nico. She related to boy.
She sells clothes.
Oh.
Play that one more time.
She related to boy.
I think she says she sells
She still
clothes.
clothes. Nico. She related to boy. Oh. Man, how y'all hang around boy and everybody say boy is this? Shit, who would do that to him? He's funny to me. Boy is funny as hell.
I don't know what he says.
No, can you play it?
Sure.
But just that section, just that little part, but I think
Boy, and everybody say boy is this. Oh, y'all funny to me. Y'all too old for this shit. Yeah, I just got caught up in the past me shine because of the bullshit, man. Sure. I know Shannon girl got a red car. Monte got a Pontiac. Nico, what color Pontiac Monte got? A gray. Nico got she got a black Impala.
Who got a black Impala?
Nico, Shannon girl, like one of the girls Shannon mentioned with.
What's her name?
Nico. She still clothes. Nico. She related to boy. Oh.
Oh.
Man, how y'all hang around boy and everybody say boy?
So we can cut out that part.
okay.
I gotta see what the timestamp is, but we can cut out that sentence.
All right. So we'll cut out the she sells or steals or what, yeah, but I think she says she sells clothes. So, all
I
right.
don't want to imply that Nick.
No.
Those I just-
No. So I think it sells, but
Okay.
do you hear, Chris?
It's
Okay. I think it sounds like sells, but yeah. All right.
and that's all I have
Okay. All right.
for this statement.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Apt? Mr. Matthews?
No, Your Honor.
Misty Williams? Mr. Garner? All right. All right, folks, let's take 5 minutes to take a comfort break and come back and talk about the other interviews, okay? Okay, all right. All right, councils, we still have the February 21st of 2015 and the June 10th of 2015 interviews, correct?
Yes,
Okay, all right. So how long is you said the February 21st is 3 hours?
approximately.
Have you all identified those particular areas like you did today that need to be discussed?
We received from Mr. Shard the areas that he would like redacted, and we're prepared to move forward on that.
Have you sent this defense your redactions yet, madam?
We did. We sent them both February 21st and June 10th. We have not heard back from the defense regarding our redaction. Other than Mr. Shard regarding his portion of what he believes should be redacted, but we have not received any feedback on the areas that we've identified.
I think I believe that regarding the defense's response to the state's proposed redactions, I don't know if it's unanimous. And so I've shared my thoughts with the state. I believe that other counsel, in a similar way, a lot of what the state is seeking to redact goes into investigations and the way investigations were conducted. And Mr. Copeland's talking about other alleged crimes as well. There's certain things on the tape that show the type of police work that was done. And I believe the inherent unreliability of what Mr. Copeland says based on what is on those tapes. So I think that's going to be the general view from the defense about the redactions that the state is seeking. I will, in all candor, the court, some of the excerpts involve a detective, I believe her name is Lewis, is that correct? Yeah. Detective Lewis, regarding a murder involving, or alleged murder involving an alleged suspect that goes by CJ. I don't know how that case was resolved, but Mr. Copeland is asked about that. He's also asked repeatedly about the February 20th shooting by investigator Gaither, and he's shown photo lineups, and I think the defense wants to get into some of the police tactics that were used in that, in the questioning of Mr. Copeland about that. But I have specifically identified certain excerpts from the statement or the interrogation that relate to my client that I believe need to be redacted.
Okay. Mr. Steele, are you similarly, or Mr. Adams, are you similarly situated? I'm going to ask each counsel that.
We elaborated and sharp, sent all of our information to the state.
Okay.
I believe after conferring with Mr. Steele,
Bless you.
that the list of redactions is inclusive, unless someone else speaks up, of the proposed redactions for all the defense members.
Mr. App, do you have any other actions? Mr. Matthews? Ms. D. Williams? Mr. Garner? All right. Okay. I tell you what, we'll just, tomorrow morning, if you could be here for 8:30, we'll work a few hours, probably, and probably cut the day at 11, be somewhere around 11 is what I'm thinking about. And we'll just get done as much as we can, in regards to the, February 28th, redactions.
21st.
I'm sorry, you're correct, February 21st. I also will discuss with you a couple of things for scheduling for next week to see whether or not we need to bring in our jurors at all, or whether or not we need to release them, because we still have a little bit more work to do. And it is my intent tomorrow to talk with you all about, Ms. Weaver is about finished with the June 10th transcript, ex parte transcript, and we'll need to talk about that, okay? All right. So just general, we'll just talk about that. I need to kind of set some parameters and set some time. So we're just going to continue to work through as much as we can. We'll probably have a day and a half worth of work, but I just need to figure out whether or not to call in our jurors or not. More than likely, I probably will not, but we'll pin down that stuff tomorrow so they can be notified. And I'll talk with you globally about the first few days of July, because we have the 4th is on a Thursday this year. So we customarily take off the 4th and the 5th, but it is likely that we will probably work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Given what we have, given what we have to do still. So I'm just kind of telling you all that. I'm giving you the heads up at this point in time. Ordinarily, I would have taken that time, but we've got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of ground to plow. So it's kind of that's kind of the rough schedule at this point in time. All right. Okay. Anything else at this point? Yeah. Let's try. Well, 8:30 is ambitious, Mr. Matthews, but if you could also be here by 8:30, we could start at 9 o'clock. Okay. So because it depends upon who else is, if there's other delays or anything like that. But if we could work a couple hours tomorrow, and then we can kind of talk, or at least a little bit, and then talk about some of the other scheduling for the week of the very last week of June and the very first week of July. That would be, we could at least kind of see where we are with that. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. We're in recess. Let's see you tomorrow morning.
In recess again, people. I mean, unfortunately, every day it's not going to be fireworks every day. You got to do the business. You got to get the logistics and the procedural things in. And this is a huge trial, so we just got to suffer through it like everybody else. Got to suffer through it. But we should thank Amanaz for providing this trial to us, having a place to watch it. I know there are other places, but she gave it to us here. Us Ammonites, I guess that's what we're going to call ourselves. Us Spartans are popping in and out. So it's good to be able to watch the trial at home. We home over here. But nothing really noteworthy. I fell asleep. I nodded out on most of this today. I tried, y'all. I tried, but I punked out. But nothing noteworthy really from my understanding. Looks like they're just trying to sync up still. And that's a difficult thing. I mean, you got different formats. You got different lawyers. I believe part of the problem is the prosecution is using Macs or Apple products for you young people. They're using Apple products, and everybody else is kind of using Android and Windows. And we're trying to sync all of that stuff up. And reminds me of I dare not say the term back in the day, but in the 90s where, you would have certain departments in college that used, typically the humanities used the Apple products or Macs, as we used to call it back then, Power Macs, education, English, any kind of education, we were using Macs. When you went over to business, you went over to any sciences, those departments were using Windows. Well, Windows wasn't even that popular. They were using PCs, as we would call it. And then eventually they switched over to start using Windows products. But sometimes the formats, now, what was ironic is at that time you could format a disk on your Mac, your Apple, and when you put it in a PC, they couldn't read it at all. They couldn't see the files. It was just totally unreadable. But if you take a disk that was formatted, and yes, I mean disk, floppy disk, y'all. You take a floppy disk that was formatted on a PC and bring it over to an Apple computer, we could read their files. And many times we can convert their files. For certain programs, we could read it and we can actually manipulate it. But those were early days in the battles. These battles that we always tend to have. Nike versus Adidas or Reebok, and Mac versus PC, and Jordan versus Bird. It was always some versus, some either or. Back at this time, late 80s or 90s, those war type battles seemed to persist strongly back then. It was McDonald's or Burger King, Poor little Wendy's got left out. Wendy's was like premium at that time. Wendy's was like, going to Wendy's was like going to Chick-fil-A. It was a notch up. And even though McDonald's and Burger King was way better than Wendy's, was a step up, It was a step up. They had baked potatoes. They had chili. They had other things other than just burgers. But I think we're seeing a little bit of that play out here during this trial. They're using different formats. As Fanny, as what was pointed out, if you've been following all of the Fanny stuff, the whistleblower confirmed what a lot of the money in Fulton County was used
All right, thank you, Sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
by Apple products.
All right, Ms. Hilton, call your next witness, please. I wasn't talking to you, Mr. Brown, but since now you're up, all right, okay, all right. Mr. Brown, call your next witness, okay? All right.
Yes, Your Honor, the state now calls Mr. Patrick Shepard-Titus to the stand. Shepard-Titus is still.
I'm not sure what's happening here. Let's listen.
Jury presence counted for.
I think.
Okay, I don't know what that was, so I guess maybe that was a little glitch or something. So I think we're gonna okay, I don't know what that was, so I guess maybe that was a little glitch or something. So I think we're gonna
Ain't no tech. Yeah, it looks like they done for the day. Something happened over there.
yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I originally thought. But yeah, that's the problem, I think, like I said, and I think we're using different formats and we're trying to sync a lot of different sources, a lot of people, and you have the extra problem of formatted material or them using two different types of systems. Is adding an extra layer of difficulty into the scenario. That's why it's taking longer than normal.
Well, no, because they running everything off of Hilton's laptop. So they ain't trying to sync nothing. They just trying to, they running everything off her laptop.
No, I mean the defense. I mean, I don't know what kind of computers they're using. I would be surprised if they're all using Apple products. I'm sure she is. Because that's what came out in the whistleblower testimony.
I mean, at this point, they just going through their notes because they're not presenting anything yet.
No, I understand that. What came out in the whistleblower testimony is she had changed one of the changes that she made when she came in, and the whistleblower was a holdover from the previous administration, from the previous district attorney. So she gave us like a kind of window into how the office is being managed behind the scenes. And she spent all of that money changing over the computers and going from regular computers and Android devices. She switched over everything to Apple.
Chicks already
in the DA's office. So I don't know what I could just imagine logistically.
Right. So, but these chicks is already running off of that because they already in their office. They already been integrated over. It's supposedly some kind of. They say it's an internet issue in the courthouse. Is what the problem is.
Well, why would that create different timestamps for people?
Internet issue in the courthouse.
Why would that create different timestamps like they were having the timestamp issue a lot. Why
But see,
would that?
that different type, that's a trick all attorneys use. That ain't really because they got okay. That's an old trick. That ain't that's yeah, that ain't just like when he's telling her to start at like let's say 10 hours and 46 minutes. She's starting at 10 minutes and 43 because she's trying to get them extra little minute, the extra seconds in to try to prove her being point, and he ain't calling her on it, and they calling her on it. Is what the problem is.
I mean,
She did that like 5 times today. He was like start at 3 hours and 3 hours, 58 minutes and 12 seconds. And she's like, well, I'm gonna start at 3:57 so that we don't miss nothing.
I also wonder what system the court reporter has been operating
they
on
calling her out.
And I wonder what the transcript that they are using.
The courthouse, the state, and all of them is running on the same system.
Say what now?
Everybody's got their own transcript. That's the problem. The state should have been supplying transcripts, but they didn't. So everybody got their own transcripts. That's the problem.
Of the original, of the interrogation stuff you're saying?
Based on what piece, based on what pieces of these videos they was, you know what I'm saying, their particular client was given. Because now keep in mind, it's like 12 of them. So everybody got different stuff, which is the problem. Which is why they should have left all of this alone on some RICO. You needed to have some video of somebody getting murdered in the street. Is what they need to have. Because she don't have nothing. They're trying to piece all of this together, and it ain't working. Hello?
Yeah, no, I was letting you speak. No, my question is like the transcripts that they have for these individual interrogations, right? That's on the video. Like, who makes the original transcript of those videos? Would that be Would that be the stenographer in court, the court reporter, or are they hiring or having somebody individually do it for each person? Hello. I think Amanaz had to step away for a second, or she might be taking another call. Hold on, y'all. So we wait for her to come back. think we're gonna, okay, I don't know what that was, so I guess, it was a little glitchy something.